I want people who are jumping on to get this. This is about being on an emotional roller coaster. I want to give you some strategy around it really quickly. Whatever you're feeling is fine. First step is don't judge your emotional roller coaster. All feelings are acceptable. It's normal to feel crazy at this time. Okay. I want you to imagine a building, a condominium, an apartment of some sort that has 5 levels. And based on our upbringing, I know this is repetitive, but I'm just going to fly through really quickly. Based on our upbringing, we are allowed to go to some levels or some floors of this condominium apartment building and not other floors. We are allowed to go on some emotional floors and not others. Okay, based on how we were raised, what was modeled for us, and what was considered acceptable and non-acceptable. In order to be healthily and expressed beings, in order to heal, in order to release the emotion, because we're on an emotional roller coaster, we need to be able to allow ourselves to be on all the levels. And there is strategy around that, and there is intention around feeling what you feel. So let me really, oh, thank you, Ace. I appreciate that. So let me, yeah, we're repeating again, like a broken record. Am I dating myself? You guys remember records? I grew up when they were records. So like a broken record. Okay. So these 5 levels, and there is an order to them. Each level of this condominium has an emotional floor, and each one of these floors has a very specific set of emotions that when we're on that floor, we can express that. Now, for some of us, some floors were inaccessible to us. For some of us, you're allowed to go to floor number 3. You could be sad, you could be a victim, woe is me, the world is against me, but you can't visit floor number 1 and be angry. For some of us, we were allowed to visit floor number 1. We're allowed to rage and be angry and express ourselves and be pissed off, but we weren't allowed, for example, to be on floor number 2, which was sadness. I hear this from a lot of men. You know, I wasn't allowed to be sad or hurt or poor me, but I was allowed to be angry. You know, punch them back if they punch you. If you're being bullied at school, you're allowed to be angry about it and fight back, but you weren't allowed to be sad or scared. So our access to these levels, to these floors, is largely dependent on what was available to us and what was deemed acceptable to us growing up. Okay, so let me give you the floors and let me give you some sense of how to move through them. So thank you, Asa, for typing this out. Floor number 1, I'm just going to repeat really quickly, is the floor where we express anger or resentment, fury, blame, rage. I can't remember what else I said. Where if you are angry, if you are frustrated about what's going on politically or anything else with COVID, gosh, with so many things right now, that's that's level 1, floor number 1. Okay, that's where we're expressing our anger and our rage. Level number 2 is disappointment and sadness and hurt. So if you were allowed as a child to be sad or disappointment and hurt, it means you are allowed to visit floor number 2. You following me so far? Floor number 3 is really the pivot floor. This is where fear lives. So if you were allowed to be afraid as a child, you were allowed on floor number 3. This is where you express insecurity, right? But for many of us, fear wasn't allowed. You know, the boogeyman, oh, don't worry about it. Is mommy and daddy going to be kidnapped? You know, all of those fears, those irrational fears. And they kept saying, don't worry, it's not a big deal. You know, I remember because, you know, my mother was a single parent, and every time she would leave the house, sometimes it was just to go get milk. Sometimes it was to go to her dancercise class. I had such immense fear thinking that she wouldn't come back, that I would cry and throw a fit. And it was always like that. I was told it was irrational. There's nothing wrong. They were trying to talk me out of my fear. So I didn't have access to that level. Are you following me? Floor number 4. Floor number 3 requires a level of self-awareness and vulnerability, which I'm going to talk about, but it is a transition floor. It's a very important floor. You know, maybe we have access to rage and maybe we can feel really sad, but floor number 3 is really about fear. And most of us don't want to talk about fear. I talked in a previous live, maybe a day or two ago, about the fact that rage is a cover emotion for fear. Even sadness can be a cover emotion for fear. Depression could be a cover emotion for fear. Fear of being seen, so fear is really the one that we have and insecurity is one that we have a really hard time accessing. That's floor number 3. Okay. Once we've leveled through that, and I'm going to tell you how to do that, Floor number 4 is understanding, empathy, and personal responsibility. Okay? It's having a level of understanding, a level of empathy, and a level of personal responsibility. And floor number 5, this is where ultimately we want to move through. This is where love is, where solutions are, where desire lives, and connection with one another. Okay. I know I'm flying through this, but you can rewind if you're on the replay. So here's the thing. Now, this is useful. This is a useful strategy that I teach on a corporate level when we're talking about Conflict 101 and having healthy communications. But it's also very helpful, and the reason I'm sharing it today is it's helpful when we're in communication with ourselves. It's so fascinating to me that it never dawned on me after 25 years of corporate speaking. My specialty was communications and leadership. It never dawned on me. Well, it kind of did, but not so much as now, that everything that I was teaching people about how to communicate with each other is exactly relevant for how we communicate with ourselves. So it's strategy around communicating with ourselves. So today in particular, I want to talk about how to use these stages to manage, not to ignore or resist, but to manage, to work through the emotional roller coaster that we're feeling. This same strategy works in communication with another person when you're in conflict. So I'm not going to talk about that today, but just keep that in mind as I'm working through examples. Okay, I'm giving you a lot. I'm talking really, really fast. I know that we're all exhausted emotionally and physically, so I want to give it to you and let you just sit and digest it. Okay, I love you guys. I love you guys. Okay, let's go. Okay. So here's what I'm going to give you a process. Here's what I do. Here's what I do, because I feel like I'm all over the place. I literally move from like, I can't freaking believe this is happening. How are these people voting this? What's wrong with these people? Oh my God. Then sadness, grief, like, what's the world coming to? Like, I'm literally going like this. And so this is a way that I have to sit my ass down, literally, and work through it. So I recommend getting some kind of notebook or a journal. Yeah, this is a writing exercise, but believe me, it's so powerful. I guess you could speak it too, but there's something very powerful about putting pen to paper. So I'm going to say write it. Okay, here's what you do. You actually want to start on the bottom level and you want to work your way up. And the intention is to visit every one of these levels in this emotional building and express fully your truth about that emotion. So let me give you an example. Let's use should we? Yeah, let's use the election. I'm going to go there. Why not? This is very present for me. So let's use the election. So I'm watching the election, everything leading up to the election, and I'm witnessing what's going on. And I'm on level 1, and level 1 is anger, resentment, fury, and blame. And so what I'm going to write down is everything that I'm feeling from that emotional space about this topic. So for example, I'm going to write things like, I'm so freaking angry. What's wrong with these people? These people are crazy. Who would support and vote for XYZ? Who would, like, I just literally, like, I went to town, just raging, frustrated, fury. And look, this isn't the place to mince words. This isn't like to be politically correct. Say what this is for you. Say what you want to say. Get it out on paper. Do not repress anything. Get angry. If you want to swear, swear. If you want to make pictures, make pictures. But this literally is the place to rage. Like, express why you're so angry. I'm so, like, for me, I'm so angry as the forerunner of a women's movement that there are so many women who would vote against themselves. Like, it infuriates me. It infuriates me that people would vote, like, you know, same with people in any area of minority who would vote for someone who does not fully support them and their rights. Like, I'm enraged about that. And so I had a lot to say about that. So that's where you start. Do not be delicate. Do not be sweet about it. Do not be cute about it. Rage. This is the space to do it. Now, once you feel like you've got it all out, yeah, write in red. That's hard to say. Write in red for anger. Great idea. But write it down. Write everything that you want to say. Okay. Now, once you start to like, the steam starts to run. It took me a while, by the way. My hand was tired. I'm going to tell you, my hand was tired. Then at that point, it's been expressed. You have the emotion is energy in motion. It's been expressed. Okay. It's done. When you feel like you can write no more about that, you've said everything that you want to say. You're going to move into the second floor, and the second floor is sadness and hurt. So this is where I'm thinking, what about this makes me sad? I'm so incredibly sad that this wasn't a blue wave. I'm so hurt. I'm so hurt that after all the pain, like I'm so sad and hurt for the people that I know whose rights have been diminished and challenged. I'm so sad and I'm so hurt. And I had to write specifically what I was sad and hurt about. You know, there are some states where trans and people of the gay and lesbian community can be refused treatment in some hospitals for their sexual orientation. Like, mind you, that's a little bit of rage, but I'm also very sad about that. That saddens me. Just the image of them being like, I'm so sad. Like, there's so many things I'm sad about. So I'm sad about this. Okay, you figured it out. Number 3, this is the one that's a little bit tricky. Okay, so number 3 is fear. Now, fear requires us, if you know Brené Brown, fear requires us to get vulnerable and to really look at our wounds and our insecurities. So it starts off for me like, I'm so afraid. I'm so afraid that all of the work, all the progress that I feel my community has made, all the strides that we've made, that RBG has made, that the women, you know, it's 100 years of women's suffrage, being able to vote. The strides that I thought we made with Obama being president, all of that, I'm so afraid that that was all a mirage, that it was all for naught. I'm so afraid that my work is meaningless. Ooh, that hurt. Like, I'm so afraid that everything that I thought I was doing, like, is pointless. I'm so afraid that this idea, this inspiration that I had it's for nothing. Like, I'm so afraid. Whew. Okay. I'm going to keep going. I could keep going. I'm also so afraid about, I'm personally so afraid about my daughter and my son. Like, I'm so afraid for people of color right now who may not feel safe. I'm so afraid that I haven't done enough. That's the truth. I'm so afraid that I didn't do more, that I can't do more. I'm afraid that people are going to give up hope. I'm afraid that I don't even know what to say to you guys anymore. You know, this morning I was like, I'm so afraid. I don't even know what to post. I'm so afraid that I'm going to come across as disingenuous. I'm so afraid that, you know, my whole purpose feels shattered. Like, I'm so afraid I'm going to lose hope. Okay. That's me being very vulnerable, but you're going to do that too. And the reason that's really powerful is from that place, you see how far we are from anger? From that place on level 3, I can start to consider level 4. And I want to tell you from my personal experience when I work through this, I kind of need a little space after level 3. Like, I need to get up, make myself some tea, blow my nose, pee. Like I really go there because I know it's the pivotal stage. And so sometimes I need just a little bit of a breath before I move into 2. Is that making sense? So I'm saying this because you might feel that too. Like, oh my God, that was a huge emotional release and I need some space. So you might feel that, and that's perfectly normal. Take a little break, take a little walk, go hug your dog. I don't know. Go get some more something. But this is not alcohol, but do whatever you need to do. Okay, so then we move into level 4, which is understanding, empathy, and personal responsibility. So the sentences start off like, I understand. This is hard. This was hard for me. I understand intellectually that the women in particular that I was so angry about, I understand that they believe they're doing the right thing. I had to start there. I understand that they think that what they're doing is for their families. They love their families. They think they're doing the right thing. I understand that they're misinformed, or I have compassion that they're lacking in maybe a level of self-love that would allow them to believe what they believe. Like I have to, that's where I have to start. Like I have to start in that space. Like I understand that people have a right to vote the way they want to vote. I have empathy. I have empathy. I have compassion for people who maybe weren't raised in a home like I was, that allowed me to feel powerful and strong and independent. You know, I have empathy and compassion for people. And I really believe this. I really do believe this for people who don't know any different. Okay. I'm going to keep going. And then I can move to level 5. And level 5 is a place of love. It's a place of solutions. It's a place of desire. And it's a place of connection. So in this space, I start to shift into the energy that I want to feel, into the desire that I have. And what I wrote were things like, at the end of the day, I care about people. I care about future generations. I care that this is not going to be the end of the road. I care that there's tomorrow, and I still want to do something. I still want there to be healing. And it might be statements like, I wish, or I want. And then we start to think of solutions. So, you know, what could I be doing in this scenario? Maybe I could be creating in my Facebook groups conversations around people who feel differently about things. I don't know. I know for a fact that I have to limit my time on social media. That's a solution. I know that I have to spend more time sitting in a space of compassion for myself so that I can have compassion for others, and so on and so forth. And the only way that I can get to that level is because I've moved through all the other levels and allowed myself to express every level of that building. Let me know how we're doing if you have questions so far.